to The Fitterist Show with your host, Christopher Allen, where we explore the art of mind and body conditioning. In this week's episode, we look at 3 news headlines in the nutrition, health, and wellness arena from the past week. First up, we examine why soft drinks are so damn addictive and what you can do to start to wean yourself off soda. Next, with winter and flu season just around the corner, what are some food and supplements that you can use to boost your immune system? And finally, a new research study that recently came out discusses the link between free time and what people do with their free time and exercise, which might help you establish a regular exercise habit in your limited free time. Let's get to it. In our first news story, it's why is soda, soft drinks, so addictive? Now, most people may know that eliminating or restricting consumption of regular and diet soft drinks is a step toward better health. However, this is often easier said than done. So what is it that makes soft drinks, both those with sugar and those that are artificially sweetened, so addictive? The answer, of course, is that is how soft drinks were designed and specifically engineered. As we've talked about before in this podcast, the food industry is massive, and as such, employs a massive number of lobbyists to act on their behalf. We'll talk more about that in a future episode of The Fitterist Show. But for now, suffice to say that lobbyists like the National Restaurant Association, the American Beverage Association, companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, the Grocery Manufacturers Association, etc., all have a vested interest in the ongoing and ideally increasing consumption of soft drinks. Just to show you how big of a business this is, the U.S., this is only the U.S., soft drink market size is projected to reach about $388 billion by 2025, with more than a third of that coming directly from carbonated drinks, which will comprise about $135 billion marketplace in 2025. The intricate engineering process of soft drinks combines really 3 key areas and exact amounts of artificial sweetener, caffeine, and carbonation to really maximize and repeat ongoing consumption. So let's take a look at each 3 of those components. First, sugar. A 20-ounce bottle of Coca-Cola has 240 calories and an incredible 65 grams of sugar in one serving. That is more sugar than is recommended for consumption by human beings in an entire day. And this is in one 20-ounce bottle of Coke. And that sugar rush appears to activate the reward centers in the brain, triggering a dopamine release, right? And dopamine is that, best described as that feeling we get when we find something we're looking for or we accomplish something. It helps us get stuff done in day-to-day life, but it's also highly addictive, or it can be highly addictive. The dopamine surge is gone from the brain very quickly, leaving the brain craving and wanting more. There's even some debate in the science world whether the dopamine reaction to sugar is more rewarding and attractive than that of cocaine, to give you an idea of just how powerful that dopamine and craving surge for sugar is in the brain. As you would expect, the more you drink, the more you get the dopamine hit, which then fuels cravings for more sugar, more soda. For diet soft drinks, the sugars, of course, replaced with artificial sweeteners, which then creates a small added complexity. Those artificial sweeteners, they trigger the same taste receptors that register the sweetness in the brain that expects sugar, essentially preparing the brain for a reward that never comes because it never gets the sugar. And when the brain does not get its expected reward, since it was kind of tricked, it starts to crave sugar even more. The second head of the triad in the addictiveness of soft drinks is caffeine. As a stimulant, and by the way, our brain likes things that stimulate it, caffeine activates reward pathways that add to the effectiveness of dopamine. So the combination of the psychostimulant of caffeine coupled with sugar that creates a reinforced good feeling via dopamine in the brain that could then cause you to consume more the next time. When consumed regularly, people often start to rely on caffeine to increase attentiveness, alertness, and energy. They may feel dependent upon it and even experience signs of withdrawal. You've heard of things like caffeine headaches when people start to cut out caffeine. They start to get headaches. They start to lose some of their ability to concentrate when they don't have caffeine. And the third and final head of the triad is carbonation, the fizz factor that's added to soft drinks. Those bubbles add a small amount of acidity, which, when combined with the sugar, intensifies that euphoric kind of reward feeling. Carbonation also has the ability to blunt a little bit of that sugary sweet taste just enough to make you crave even more. Now, there are other factors involved here too. Soft drinks have been around since the 1800s. And remember, there have been years and years of marketing that has driven a lot of ritualistic behavior around soft drinks, whether you are having a soft drink while studying late at night, drinking a soda while driving in the car on a trip, opening a soft drink before a long meeting at work, creating diet lines of soft drinks that reinforce a, quote, healthier beverage, i.e. less guilt in choosing a beverage to consume. There's been years of product placement on TV shows and movies. Even the ritualistic sound of hearing that pop and fizz when you open a can of soda and you hear that carbonation, some of these events actually trigger dopamine responses. This is even before you've even consumed any of the soft drinks. So why do you want to curtail potentially your consumption of soft drinks? Well, the regular consumption of sugary-based soft drinks has been proven to lead to an increased risk of obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes, while regular consumption of diet soft drinks with artificial sweeteners has shown to potentially lead to an increased risk of stroke and potentially dementia. And I'll put the study link in the show notes, which you can access at www.fitterist.com/033. So I used to be a pretty big diet soda fan. I probably would drink probably 2 to 3 cans a day, or a can, a 20-ounce bottle, and then another 12-ounce can. But I eventually kind of weaned myself off and moved to water and flavored water, and even skim milk on occasion. I do, however, still enjoy a diet soft drink every once in a while, particularly when I go out for a meal. I'll have a Diet Coke, but I kind of use that as part of my overall cheat meal for that Saturday night, or if I'm doing 2 cheat meals a week, Saturday night, Tuesday nights usually. But water overall is still the best. And by the way, it's the least expensive beverage for overall optimal health. Now, on to news story number 2. With winter and flu season approaching, aside from an annual flu shot, nutrition can actually help build a stronger immune system and at least give your body a little extra protection. Focusing on nutrient-rich foods and a healthy lifestyle behaviors can help you stay, hopefully, a step ahead of any flu bug this season. So let's take a look at some of the foods and supplements that can help boost your immune system. First up, vitamin C. Vitamin C stimulates the formation of antibodies that bind up dangerous toxins before they enter our bodies. Since our bodies don't really store much vitamin C, we need foods that are rich in this vitamin on a daily basis. Good sources of vitamin C include, obviously, oranges, probably heard of that, grapefruit, tangerines, strawberries, melons, papayas, red and green bell peppers, tomatoes, and you can also supplement with vitamin C. In some studies, they have gone up to about 3 grams of added vitamin C per day, since it is a water-soluble vitamin. Another item is zinc. Zinc plays a powerful role in wound healing, a strong immune system. It's mostly found in lean meats, poultry, seafood, milk, some grains, beans, seeds, and nuts. While usually adequate amounts of this mineral are essential for strong immunity, higher than recommended doses up to those around 40 milligrams per day, maybe as an upper bound, can actually weaken the body's ability to fight off. So you just want to consult with your doctor and make sure that the amount of zinc that you might be consuming, particularly if you're supplementing your regular diet, doesn't exceed that kind of upper bound around 40 milligrams per day. A third area is protein. Protein, backbone of our body's defense mechanism against antibodies and other immune cells that are made of protein. Obviously, if you're eating a healthy diet, you're generally eating a good protein with each meal, including things like eggs, milk, meat, soy, fish, poultry, and it can also be found in some vegetables and nuts. Another area to look at is probiotics. This is basically the good bacteria that we find in cultured foods such as yogurt or kimchi that live in the gut. Although researchers still really haven't identified all of the specific strains of healthful bacteria that work together to enhance our immune system, we do know that various types of dietary fiber are needed to feed these beneficial bacteria that live in the gut. Another area is vitamin A. This strengthens and regulates one of the most important immune system organs of the body, the skin. That's a great trivia question. The largest organ in the human body is the skin. It's actually an organ. So when you think of vitamin A, think of bright orange, reds, and greens when you're looking in foods, things like sweet potatoes, carrots, kale, spinach, red peppers, whole eggs. So you need the yolk, not just egg whites. Another supplement that some people take is echinacea. This has been shown to stimulate the production of some immune cells. Studies are a little mixed when it comes to does it really help with a common cold and fighting off germs and the severity of some symptoms. Overall, I think the research kind of estimates that echinacea may reduce your chances of getting a cold by 10 to 20%. So if you want to throw it in there, why not? In addition to these foods and supplements, you also want to remember, in general, how to boost your immune system with things like good hygiene, hand washing, always washing your produce, making sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Target 7 to 9 hours for adults to help your body rest and repair so you can build up strength to fight off any illness or germs. And also remember stress management. Things like meditation, listening to music, journaling, even physical activity is also a great way to help manage stress and reduce the risk of some of chronic diseases that could weaken your immune system even further. And finally, our third story. In a recently published study in the Journal of Preventing Chronic Disease, researchers studied 32,000 Americans age 15 and older to see, in general, how they spend their free time. Let's take a look at the experiment itself. On average, Americans reported more than 5 hours or 300 minutes of free time per day. And most of this time was spent watching TV or using electronic devices such as smartphones or computers. Now, there's a general perception among the public and even public health professionals that lack of leisure time, lack of free time is one of the major reasons that Americans do not get enough physical activity. But the researchers in this study clearly found no evidence in support of those beliefs. The researchers even excluded activities such as grocery shopping, cleaning, cooking, eating, sleeping, showering, getting ready for work, playing with children out of that free time bucket. Even with doing that, they found that no age group, no ethnic group in the study reported less than 4.5 hours of free time per day. When you break that down, men reported an average of nearly 6 hours, almost 356 minutes of free time. Women reported an average of 5.3 hours, or 318 minutes of free time. The group with the shortest amount of free time was women ages 25 to 60, who reported about 4.5 hours, or 271 minutes per day. Just more evidence that women, in general, do more than men. That aside, when people did have free time, what did they do? Well, the majority of people's free time was spent looking at screens. So with men reporting 211 minutes of screen time per day out of their total 356 minutes of total free time. So about 60% of the men's free time was used staring at a screen. And women reported about 175 minutes of screen time per day out of their 318 total minutes of free time, which is about 55% of their free time. So not too far behind the men in terms of screen gazing with their free time. Now they looked at those same people, same cohorts, and found that men spent just about 6.6% of their free time, so almost 10 times less time engaging in physical activity than in staring at a screen. And women spent about 5% of their free time, again, about 10 or 11 times less doing physical activity than staring at a screen. Also, a side note that the authors mention are that people with higher incomes reported spending a larger share of their free time on physical activities and less time looking at screens compared with those in lower income groups. So the researchers were left with a challenge. How do we increase the public's awareness of how they actually use their time to create messages that encourage Americans to reduce their screen time and become more physically active? The findings from this study clearly support that if Americans were to devote 20 to 30 minutes of exercise per day, which is kind of the U.S. guideline, there is more than enough time in a day to make this very, very feasible. So the U.S. guidelines recommend that people engage in roughly 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity per week. So if you break that down, 20 to 30 minutes per day, 30 minutes over 5 days, take the weekend off, however you want to split it up, it's very, very doable. But the authors struggled a little bit with how do you get people to exercise? Well, they concluded that physical activity needs to be more convenient and compelling enough to compete with screen time. That's going to be a little tricky. That's why with many of my clients, I'll often suggest that no extra time, where they can spend time on the bike, on the treadmill, while they're engaging with YouTube, while they're looking and scanning through Instagram photos and stories to kill two birds with one stone. Clearly, the lack of free time is not responsible for the low levels of physical activity in the general population. So I found this one to be an interesting study in that it really reflects upon people's choice. What they choose to do with their large, non-trivial block of free time is what really matters here. Do they choose to do physical activity? Do they choose to stare at a screen? Do they choose to try and combine both? That's the challenge that we have in terms of consistent physical activity across the general population. I'll link to the full study in the show notes at www.fitterist.com/33 for those interested in diving a little deeper into the research, or for those that are just interested in seeing how they might be able to better use some of their free time to maintain a physical activity regimen. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to The Fitterist Show. You can follow us on Instagram at FitteristMindBody and on Twitter at FitteristMind. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to a friend or subscribe to make sure you don't miss any future episodes of The Fitterist Show. My name is Christopher Allen, and make it a magical day.